And we're recording. Excellent. All right, so we're back with Chris. Chris, say hello. We were trying to record a minute ago, and then my computer blew
Hi,
up.
everybody.
So today we are going to be talking about spiritual alchemy. I guess you could say, working with the energetic vibrations, the constituents, and which a lot of people on the ascension path, and a lot of people working in more of the stepping out in the four and the five, higher four, in the 5D energies are referring to as coding. I guess you could say the coding of the hologram, what goes into making this, and how that all works and how it all comes together. And a lot of you will actually really appreciate the fact that this actually does tie in everything. All right, this is going to bring it full circle. Now we're going to talk about magic, and spells. All you Wiccans, please tune in. This is not going to be about hermetic alchemy, however, not as such. This is more talking about vibrational constituents and sympathies that create certain things, whether or, and how you can change not only your environment, but, yes, through operations, ritual, ceremony, work with creating, I guess you could say, points of energy, these nexuses and these vortexes of energy that will attract and create and transmute your life into what you want to have in your life. And so we are working with, we're going to start off with the basics that come with troubleshooting some parts of manifestation. And I'm using I guess you could say, a marketing or a business model or a consumer, I guess it's a consumer business model that is really popular here in the States, might actually, a lot of people are using these, especially in the Western United States. You have your triangle here, all right? So we get, can you see that? Yeah, you can see it. All right. Basically, you get things, you have a choice, when you're actually, as a consumer. Do you want something fast, affordable, or do you want something of high quality? And you get to pick two of the three to the exclusion of the latter. So you can have something that's affordable and of high quality, but it's not going to come very fast. You could have something fast and affordable, but it might be cheap crap. You might have something that's quality and fast, but it's going to be extremely expensive. The universe operates in a very similar model when you're manifesting, when you're trying to create something in your life. And this can be something that a lot of folks need to consider when we are, embarking on the part of actually transmuting and turning things into, our RDs. This applies to anything from as simple as trying to manifest more money, attracting a love relationship, to even increasing your own spiritual power, your own spiritual awareness, okay, and finding yourself on the right path of resonance. And basically, we change our triangle model to choose between the three big uns here: the how, the what, and the when. Now, a lot of this is, might seem pretty self-explanatory, but you want to think about, maybe you've had some troubles manifesting in your life, bringing things into your life, attracting the right things, because you may be trying to get all three at once. Some people, in their resonant experience, how they are, we will always gravitate towards what is easy for us in our personal coding, as we are all different yet part of the same, and one and the same function in this universe. We have resonant functions in the universal body. Some people have a tendency to do best when manifesting the when and the what, but they don't necessarily have to worry about manifesting or contriving the how. And that is those are the folks that we consider very lucky, because they tend to get out of the how state of mind, and things just attract because of that resonant sympathy. And it's not exactly the most passive way of thinking when you look at it, because you have somebody who has to actually get into a resonance where things have to come quicker. You have to know how to resonate with something that is going to bring you exactly when you want it, when you need it, and you have to focus on what you want. Sometimes we have folks who don't know the what. And this tends to happen a lot with folks. I've had quite a few readings where, you have people who come to crossroads, and they may have concerns, but they don't necessarily know what they want. They just know they want something to change. And so we focus then on the how and the when. We want something soon. We want it to come through a specific avenue. Hows are difficult to work with, though, because you would need to manifest an avenue. How is more money going to come to you if you are, maybe you're not looking for a job, or maybe you're not looking for a new job. Maybe the money's not coming through this job. Maybe you have to have an avenue for that to come to you. And same with love. People want to, get into a romantic relationship, but they don't want to go out and date anybody. And that is a very difficult, thing to look at. As far as describing the when, that's pretty self-explanatory. Do you want it now or later? The what can be very difficult for some people because a lot of people think the what and the how are the same thing. Let's take love. If I wanted to manifest a love relationship, okay, that is the what. If I said I want a man that is, you know, spiritually inclined like myself, preferably my height or a little bit taller, and that's the how. That's not the what, that's the how. And that, I think, is where people tend to stump themselves in the manifestation process and what they're trying to attract. All right. Chris has just let me know that the picture is, having a little bit of an issue. Recording is okay, though, so I can just edit that out. Can you see me? Can you hear me? You're not saying
Yep,
anything. Okay. I
loud
was
and
like,
clear.
hold on, I can't hear you if you're not saying anything. No, I was like, okay, hear me. No, it's so the how would actually be my customization of the thing I'm trying to manifest, you know? And we really do need to think about how that comes together and how we can actually build a strong resonance with our manifestation, what we're trying to create. If you want a committed love relationship as your what? Committed, you specify fidelity and things like that. And you're asking for this and you're already married. And you're not allowing it to come from the partner you're with and you want somebody new. You're already sabotaging this because you're not emitting a frequency that is saying, I want fidelity. And how is it going to find you? How is this person going to find you? You may find somebody else who's having an affair. You may find somebody else who's already partnered. You may find somebody who is not necessarily looking for a commitment. This is a frequency change that needs to be assessed. And when it comes to the how, again, your how is actually your customization. If I said I wanted a guy who was, um, he had to have a Southern American accent, that's a how, you know. And don't worry, I don't really think that way. So, but oh, it's nice. But the the other portion of it, when you talk about the when all depends on when you are going to vibrate more resonantly with it. And if you choose the how and the when over the what, you might not necessarily get what you think you want because you're not saying what you want. If you choose the what and the when, you might not get it how you want, but you probably should be okay with that. And by probably, I mean if you want to have it, you're going to have to get it because you know what? That's the only way it's going to come to you quickly. If I, and it's a very important thing to look at there. Alchemy is really important here. The spiritual alchemy is extremely important to consider when you are trying to make a resonant shift to attract quicker and yet, more specifically what you are looking for, maybe even how you're looking for it. Sometimes we can actually use these tools, these ceremonies, more thoroughly and more intensely to actually get closer to having the all three. But you might want to realize that, you don't really ever get the all three, okay? Because the universe goes by path of least resistance. Where are you resisting your desire? Are you resisting your desire because you want money without going out and getting a job? Maybe you want more money, but you don't want to move to where the money is. Maybe you want a relationship, but you don't want to get out of the relationship you're in. Maybe you want a relationship, but it's so dang specified that the man that you're looking for is across the country, or the gal that you're looking for is already with another man. So you really have to think about how you are approaching your discussion there with the universe. There's another part of this that actually is extremely important to consider, and that is your, I guess you could say, your vibe, your energetic health, and what is going to be most, what is nurturing. Now we have to think of our auras and our energy field in the home we live in as, as soil, as a garden, to grow, attract, pollinate, proliferate these things. Some soil's better than others. If it's too acidic, if there's too much nitrogen, if it's too dry, got to think about how that actually happens. And we can look at that by actually isolating vibrational resonances in how the universe works. All right, and all of you pagans out there are really going to like this, because I know how we pagans like to isolate elemental frequencies. Well, now we're actually bringing this again full circle, and we're going to be talking about this in a way that everybody can understand. Okay? We have, oh, I'm not going to do it that way. So we have essentially these codes that are going into the energetic evolution process. Energy evolves just like we do. So I'm going to categorize them in, I guess you could say, dimensional frequencies. So let's say we have 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D. Because if we go any further than that, we're going to be screwed. So, one dimension, first dimension, in a spiritual sense. This is the thought by itself. No energy, no weight. While there's weight to a thought, there's some energy in a thought, but there's no programming. It has not quite built a resonance. It has not snowballed into evolving something else. This is the thought. Okay? And we have that down here in 1D, these little thoughts. Okay? As these constituents come together, they evolve into the thought forms of the 2D world. All right? And these, again, may or may not have a specific correspondence yet. It's just a piece of information, of coding, that goes into the universe. We're working with the law of attraction, and we do not apply a certain level of spiritual energy to our thoughts, beyond what it takes to create the thought and send it out of the universe. We are working with this energy. Now, please do not think that I'm saying this is a low, dense vibration because it's 2D. I'm not even really using that scale, so let's just hold on right there. Now we get into 3D, and this is where you have, I guess you could say, what we would what in many spiritual practices would be your elemental affinities. Okay. And depending on what modality you work with, it could be your earth, air, fire, water spirit, or your earth, metal, water, fire spirit, or anything like that. All of a sudden we get into 3D and we're working with these elemental frequencies. Again, the frequencies have evolved into these, and suddenly they've compartmentalized into what you could consider to be systems or tissues. We can look at it like cells, or actually this is even more like organelles, cells, tissues. The 4D is where we really get the magic going. These things actually start evolving into the organs. And this is basically where we have our spells working. Okay. These are our spiritual coding, our manifestations, our sacred geometry. It's the beginning of it. This is where things, and we would send that out to go turn into something else. And as that evolves, we get something much more complex. These things are constantly merging together as they evolve back to the whole, just as we are. So that we're looking at an extreme microcosm evolution. And as these things grow into, and come into a whole, from being organelles to cells to tissues to organs, we get entire systems of thought and systems of energy frequencies. The chi that makes up the life force that holds, us together in this form is actually a big composite system of these tissues, organelles, and organs working, in a certain balance. When we get past that, into the higher 4D and into the 5D, we start to assess a different, I guess you could say, a very different polarity shift. Now, when I say polarity, I'm not talking about light and dark and duality. This is a polarity more you could actually equate to, say, an acid or a base. Or the reference kind of like that. And this is where we have life and death, in a sense. You have your dude here, or your body with your aura, and just like your cells and your tissues will die and then regenerate, or sometimes they will just go on for the duration. Um, you have a life and death cycle in energy. You do, and in my book, I term it as I term it between I guess I kind of call it like light, kind of like a holy light, but not necessarily like a love vibration, but it's basically like the sun, kind of like a solar holy light. And then the other one is kind of like a fel. Fel is another term for it's another way of saying bile. And these things are natural parts of the universe. What does bile do? It breaks down dead tissue. It breaks down toxins. It's gross, and it's disgusting, and it's dense, it's viscid, and that energy is all around us, and so is the light energy. Now, does that make the bile fel stuff evil? No, absolutely not. Is it a problem if you have a rather high proportion of it, just kind of sitting in your energy sphere, in your body, or in your home? Absolutely. Higher concentrations of bile and breakdowns are starting to break down the coding and the energetic structures of the reality, physical and spiritual, around you. And that is just a part of the universe. And we have to deal with the sense that, a lot of people don't quite understand how that alchemy really works, because on a chemical level, this bile is breaking down things that are either dead or stagnant. That's what it's supposed to do, the way bile would break down a dead or a stagnant cell. But if you know anything about bile, in a physical sense, it's going to break down whatever it's going to break down, which is why it has to be kept under control. And a lot of the times, people are living in these states, these spiritual states, these emotional, energetic, and psychological states, physical living states, relationships that are corroded with this energy. And it's breaking them down. And that's what creates negative circumstance, harmful circumstance, stagnating circumstances. How can you attract when you are in a state of a death cycle? You can turn it off, though. And this light energy, like I said, it's almost like light from the sun in a sense. What that does is that actually prolongs, and it keeps the energy flowing, it keeps the energy up and up and up. It controls it. And so these two, in effect, actually neutralize each other. So if there ever were a duality, it is the light and the fel. And that's it. No good or evil, nothing. Um, can these be used in a sense where it would be, I guess you could say, with a light or a dark idea or purpose? Yes. The fel of the bile, that's basically, when you think about it, that's actually the stuff what you would consider a curse to be made of. Destroy, break down, call in these dark energies. Um, and the light can be used as a weapon as well, because a lot of this light, as it comes in to purge what is going away with the fel, or what is rotting with the fel, means you are cleaning up a house. But if you have ever, if you're cleaning up a house, you might notice that some dirt, some stain, something just gets taken out with it, and that can feel pretty destructive. So we have to work on, actually, first we have to balance that out, find out where energy structures in our bodies, in our homes and things like that are stagnating and starting to rot, or where we may have built something with a dying energy. Um, or we infused into our own manifestations, into our thought forms, which would go on to evolve. What if there's a trace of that bile in there? And what happens is this bile, what happens is these energies go into a state where they are constantly pulling in. Bile is the base. If you know anything about a base is something that actually takes electrons. And an acid is something that contributes electrons. And what happens is that bile will absorb things around it. People who are working in a fell state of mind tend to be in a state where they need to consume. They don't know why they're consuming. What are they consuming? Energy, however they can get it. And this, it can bring on self-destructive behavior. Um, I mean, I would actually, I look at the seven deadly sins as almost like a poison, or a chakra symptom of this fell energy in one of the energy vortexes of our seven chakras. From the fight or flight, and well, I guess you could say from like the root chakra, a higher amount of this bile energy would result in gluttony. If you do not, and gluttony can actually move on to addictions and things like that. The hyperconsumption, lust, the need for physical attention, physical affection, and the thrill from it, sacral chakra poisoning. Solar plexus, it just kind of goes on up. The solar plexus would definitely have more to do with greed, overcompensation by acquiring and holding. Your heart chakra, it's a poison with envy, jealousy. You lose compassion. All of a sudden, you are living in emotional lack, and you resent others for their emotional abundance. Wrath with the throat, and so on and so forth. With we end up with pride here at the crown. The poisoning that says I don't need spiritual teachings, I don't need spiritual lessons, I don't need spiritual guidance, I don't need to connect with my higher self. It's just going to go that way. And so again, this is all coming full circle. Luckily, negating fell energy, in abundance. We don't want, I mean, there is no way to get rid of it absolutely, because I'm sorry, it's a universal process. It's like saying, okay, we're going to get rid of all the bases and ammonia in the universe. So you've got ammonia in your body. You generate it to pee. You know, it's alchemy. Um, we can actually, again, we can bring in that light energy. We can bring in a different element of energy, something that's a little bit more life-giving. And work with it there. And luckily, you don't really need to go out and study and study and study, to the point where your head explodes about what constituents these are made of, because it's in everything already. But you have to evaluate, where are things rotting and stagnating? What makes something rot and stagnate? And then we can look into the Eastern associations of, like, how does qi work? Where is stagnant qi? Where is fresh qi? Feng shui, acupuncture, all that kind of good stuff. Keeping it flowing, keeping it flowing. Don't let that bile build up in your energy field. Don't let that bile build up in your relationships, you know. And then what you can do is you can learn to customize according to the frequencies of these elements what you're trying to manifest. What does the energy of money feel like to you? Do you know what money feels like on an energetic level? I do. I know how to magnetize to it because I know where to find that energy. And learning how to, love and romance. Learning how to, connect to all these even most minute little things. And the energy alchemy, working with herbs and stones and crystals, you're working with things that already resonate on vibrations in smaller capacities to make that vibe happen. People who work with crystals, they're taking, okay, it's like, now where it's almost like cooking, you know. So you want to manifest, the healing or something like that. Maybe we're just doing something very simple. We're getting all this icky bile energy out of the body, So we want, say, like the energy of a really bright light, holy light kind of solar stone. We're gonna grab some citrine, to cool that down a little bit so it's not so harsh and intense. We're gonna throw in maybe an amethyst or a rose quartz, something that's a little bit more on the vibe of a calming, relaxing love. And then we're also going to throw in the energy of, say, a blue lace agate to sort of, create that flow, that moving flow, so that just because we're putting the energy in, we're going to have to also move the energy through and out. And then all of a sudden you have this custom-made thought form that you made out of this energy outside yourself, programmed it with the energy within yourself, and gave it a purpose and sent it to do its thing. And that's basically what everybody does, no matter what. Does that make sense? I went on for
So,
25 minutes.
no, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
So, where would you say that the process of what's your feelings then about the process of awakening in relation to that then, in
Well,
relation to the alchemy?
well, in the process of awakening and enhancing your awareness, in the process of using the alchemy, becoming one and understanding, we are all one. You know, I'm you, you're me. We're all doing this and that and the other thing. There is one, the understanding of the purpose of these energies and these frequencies. And then there's the part where, you open your awareness, you connect, you bring your higher self down instead of going up and out. And all of the sudden, you actually have this cognizance of what your desire, your experience in an objectification is going to feel like, and what the constituents of that are. What are the codes that go into making this? What are the very specific codes and thoughts, and what are the very specific codes and resonances that you would mix together, throw in the oven and have it come out, or if you prefer a different analogy, sewing it together. And becoming more awake is also an opportunity for you to hold more of that higher light. Eventually, the fel and the light here, and the polarities will become one in their own evolution. Because you have to think of us as all going a constant evolutionary ladder, and that one is that all-encompassing, all of these things in the source as one unconditional love wave, holding the universe, you know, and
The sort of picture that I get, Nico, is like is almost like the higher consciousness coming down into, let's say, the lower dimensions, transforming the lower dimensions into the higher frequency and bringing it back up, if you know what I mean. I kind of get that sense
that's
that that's
exactly what
kind
it
of,
is.
yeah.
You're absolutely right. That's exactly what it is. Because the higher being comes down, you know, and what happens is you identify the frequencies, you identify the codes, you identify the resonances and the correspondences, you put them all together, and then you bring in that light, that portal, and you turn it into a portal. Now, what you're doing when you're doing that, and it's funny you mention it, and I'm not plugging my own products here, but I do this with all my oils and incenses too. I actually have a real ritual I do where I call in this higher 5D light into it. You're ascending, or you're ascending or awakening the and raising the vibrations of every constituent if you're working with physical objects of those objects. And all of the sudden, I am awakening or creating a 5D piece of rosemary or a 5D piece, it's vibrating on those higher levels too. And so you have something that's actually much more potent and much more higher in frequency than something that is just, a tea that you bless, or something like that. And well, unless you're actually doing that, and then you've got a pretty high vibe tea, which is awesome too. And then that's basically that, I mean, you're calling it in, yes, but it's not only are you're raising the frequency of the correspondence, but you're actually um, creating a vortex in that. In your tool, in your crystal, a vortex. The crystal becomes a vortex. The oil becomes a vortex. The tea becomes a vortex. That's releasing these energies to wherever it would graft to. And that's how you actually create an even stronger attraction and a stronger manifestation of what you want to have happen, what you want to experience.
So would you say the most powerful thing then is this is a sense that I get is obviously the base foundation for this is the awakening of yourself and the ridding of those lower vibrations within yourself, so that you become like a generator for
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, and then you transform it from that position, and then all the other tools kind of add to that and strengthen that as well. You know,
Absolutely.
all the other tools that we can use. Yeah,
Because you
that's
take
the sense I get.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Because you're taking a chance. So, I mean, we have to admit this. We are taking a chance when we are doing these things and we are working with this alchemy, literally moving it through this channel. How clean is the channel? We're taking a chance on what we're manifesting, you know. And if we want to go back to the cooking analogy, you know, if, you know, if somebody is cooking without washing their hands, you know, you're really kind of, you got to think about, well, okay, maybe their hands are clean, they haven't really done anything bad, but it's just kind of like, well, maybe they just got out of the toilet and they didn't do anything. Maybe the only reason they didn't wash their hands is because they just got out of the shower and started cooking. Okay, that seems pretty kosher. And then you have, you know, maybe this person was just took out the trash and all of a sudden, you know, now she's kneading a loaf of bread. It's not, you know, it's, you really think about how clean your channel is, and thinking about the cooking analogy is really important. And yes, raising your vibrations, getting into that higher state, cleaning out that negative energy. The quality of your manifestation depends on the quality of energy at the conception,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And
See that? Yeah, I mean, yeah. The more and more we do that, the more and more we become awakened, and we start ridding ourselves of those low vibrations. Then we gain
hmm
more influence, which is the transformative process of transmuting everything, and then everything starts to change that comes into our experience.
hmm
And then, as you say, you can start to then become a little bit more specific on that. Then,
and I think that that is, you know, is interesting as it, you know, as it may sound. I do think that we, as we become more responsibly aware, awake, and ready, specifics, specifics, um, is is going to be something that we have to understand. You know, we can't really change the universe into something we want if we're just making a bunch of high vibrational, you know, I mean, because these things are going to get tainted or destroyed, you know. I don't believe there is such a thing as high vibrational arsenic, you know, or anthrax, or you know, anything like that. And these things are all going to be disappearing, you know, on a grander and on a smaller scale. And maybe you're going to try to raise the vibrations of, you know, of your life, which, you know, anyone's life, you know, it all depends. Like, what transformation will transpire as you go through that, and what's to take it over. Because the other part of this is, when you have this light energy coming in to meet with the lower and denser vibration, they cancel each other out and neutralize, much like an acid and a base. And that's where your thought, Chris, your, you know, the what takes the place. Highest, 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 higher than the fell, higher than our conception of this purifying solar kind of light. It's not really solar light, but, you know, it's the closest thing I have to that right now in my poor human language. And we have, you know, this, that has to take the spot after we neutralize, you know. Otherwise, we have nothing. And then there's an opportunity. Maybe we have some more of this light coming in. Okay, that's great. Now this light itself, the solar light, the holy light, that all that kind of stuff, that it's not fail safe. Okay, this light energy that we work with is also, you know, or that particular vibe, you know, it can create uh, tiresome and troubling circumstances as well. Yes, it's attractive. It can attract you anything. It is charismatic. It is a powerful tool. It can even be a powerful weapon. But don't get burned. You know, all of a sudden you go from playing in the mud to playing with high-powered lasers. It's not, you know, we have to know where to, okay, calm it down a little bit, you know, because some people, they will just kind of, you know, like, I mean, you can almost think of it as like a Ray or like a Star Wars kind of thing. It's, you know, it's okay, it's going to do its thing, it's going to do what it's going to need to do, but you can dial it back a little bit. Because some people do call this stuff in really zealously, and I'm sure you may have seen it. Some people get really zealous, like, okay, I need to call in this light and get rid of all this foul. It is like, oh, okay, dial it back. Where's that higher love? Where's that 5D higher love? You know, or 12, 10, 100,000D super source love, you know, that is supposed to make everything optimal. You know, those are polarities, acids and bases. Acids and bases make water, you know, and they make carbon dioxide. But you might want to actually make something else, and not just have it be an empty neutral space until suddenly it becomes super basic or super acidic again.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the alchemy, yeah. I think like I said, for me, the most important thing, or the starting block, if you will, is is the alchemy within oneself first,
Absolutely.
the spiritual alchemy within oneself to transmute the old, the negative patterns and all this, and also the toxicity in the body, as well. And I think the better we do that, then, like you said before, we become a cleaner conduit to then be able to create alchemy outside of us, if you will, even more easily
Right.
and more powerfully.
Absolutely. And, I mean, you're absolutely right. It has to be within, first and foremost. If you have an abundance of, this bile lower vibrational energy within you, working through you, it's going to get into your work. You have to think of yourself as a hose or, maybe a water pistol or something. If there's dirt in there, God knows what in there, it's going to come out with it. So there's what if you're manifesting dirty money? What if you're manifesting an unhealthy relationship because you are manifesting with unhealthy vibrations? You know, and it'll come. It'll work. It'll come. But you also got to think about what if you have great vibrations yourself in your field and you're manifesting, manifesting, manifesting. Okay, I've done all this clearing work. I've meditated. I've cleared all the density out of my field. I'm going to manifest a great thing right now. Tomorrow, I'm going to go back to the same old, same old. And that, I think, is something we need to discuss as well.
Mm,
The
yeah.
the part time.
Can't be a part-time thing, that's for sure.
Absolutely not.
It's yeah, it needs to. You can't. The awakening and the inner alchemy is not something that can be faked.
No.
It's not something that can be put on temporarily. You either do it or you don't do it, and and it's got to be a genuine process for sure.
Right. Well, and I think that people have this limiting assessment of what it takes to get there. And so we look at these obstacles as excuses not to begin. And I for one, I'll throw myself on the, I guess you could say, put myself up on the stand right now. In a sense, yeah, you know what I'm doing. People, and people like my work. People like my energy. They like my meditations, my dissertations, and everything like that. And do they know that I drink 2 pots of coffee a day and smoke maybe 10 to 15 cigarettes a day? I do. And what happens is that, we have these expectations that you can't even get anywhere unless you stop doing that, or you go, you get yourself on some crazy diet where you don't eat, or and it's really no. You can get started, and there are things that you can do. Yes, I probably am diminishing my energetic potential from whatever it is comparatively. You know, if by smoking, drinking too much caffeine, not getting enough sleep. You know, eating shit and then not eating anything. It's it happens. But I love food. I'm addicted to smokes, and I love coffee, and I'll work on that. I'll work on that. But I can also go so far, go this far and further while I work on that, not after I do. I'm not going to make any fucking excuses about awakening and getting, and putting it off because I don't think that I meet the requirements. No, absolutely not. I'm just going to go for it. And I'll do it while I eat meat and smoke and drink coffee and, have wine and all this other stuff. And I know I'll get there. And yes, there will come a time, very soon actually, where I will be starting to change and regulate my diet. But that's not the direction I came from when I started on this journey. And I'm actually, I like where I am. And the fact that I can even resonate with people like you who are much more healthy than me also says something, you know? And it's
Everything's everything's a progression into it, and everything's like some of those other things are more subtler things that maybe are not as important as what the original things were. true awakening for me really is getting rid of the conditioning and the negative patterns of thought, of perception, of belief.
Yes,
I think they're the keys. They're the keys, and then everything else after that is kind of just like a refining, tuning process. You know.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. I think that the first part has to do with we have to go through a period of empowering, of surrendering, serious assessment of not just the what we're thinking, but the quality of the thoughts that we're thinking, really getting down into understanding that the conditioning that we have does dictate how much energy we can channel through us, how we channel it through, and what we add to that energy as it comes through, you know.
They act as a block. The thoughts, the identified thoughts, the conditioned thoughts, they act as like a block. And when you get past that, it's almost like floodgates opening because it's almost like your crown chakra opening, and then it's like a flood of the true consciousness that you are seems to come through. And so for me, that really is that's the dam that needs to be broken first,
Absolutely.
is those conditioned beliefs and thoughts.
Well, and
And then, like I say, everything else is just a refining process afterwards,
oh,
to harness the power of your consciousness in this body.
exactly, exactly. And I think that a lot of people don't know how quickly they can get started. You know, if I had to make a message to, to everybody in this video, and I'm going to probably make this message all the time, watching isn't the same as doing. And I think that there is this piece of conditioning that we have as human beings where we want to see somebody succeed at something before we even attempt. And so that's a self-limiting condition.
Yeah, we live in it. We live in a we live in a quick fix society
Yes,
where we've been taught to want everything very quickly. So we've people can often be hesitant to do something that they feel they have to put some kind of work into it, or have to go on a different path, which may take a while to
or
do
get clearance.
because everybody seems to want things very quickly. But that's just a conditioned thought. That's just a thought in itself.
Absolutely.
There's the original thing that we all are is that which is underneath, behind, before that thought, before those thoughts. So, you know,
I agree. I absolutely agree. And when it comes to the alchemy of it all, this really can be also translated to, your code and your energetic frequency, your makeup. That's described, in the astrology very well, to a degree, to a degree. There are many different ways to interpret it.
yeah,
But when we talk about like astrological predictions and things like that, we are looking at vibrations being embedded into the atmosphere through us and through everything, by this other part of us, this big organ of our, well, actually, it's not even a big organ when you think about how big we really are, but this big thing, this planet, and in the vibrations that it emits, because we as people emit vibes. You get vibes from people, you get good vibes, you get not so great vibes, you get one thing or another. Imagine a planet which is giving off those huge vibes, and we are in close proximity to these planets. How they are interacting, how their vibes mix together, some great, some not so great, just like people. And the way the astrology works on that is finding the times where, okay, so Venus and Jupiter are making a vibe very, very, very synchronic with, or sympathetic to money. Much easier to manifest during this period of time because the energy is already there and readily available. It's the right season, you know. You don't plant seeds.
that's it.
Yeah, you don't go plant an apple tree in December in the northern hemisphere if you wanted to, if you want to have fruit in February. That's not going to happen.
So, so would you, so would you agree about this then, Nico? As we're talking about
Sure.
astrology, it's my feeling that that astrology is very much like we said, as we've said before, like a potential, or it's an influence, but it's not destiny, because we make the destiny ourselves. but it's a potential. It's like you said, it's a okay. The energies are like this, so therefore, if you want to choose to do this now, then that would be the right time. So it's an influence rather than a destiny.
Yes, it would be easier now than at another time where, it's the vibrations have changed,
Yeah.
And so you're basically working with these
So I think,
palettes, you know.
mm,
It's
yeah,
the vibrations have changed. It's are you're going to get more if you have more solar power. If you get more solar power in the daytime than you do at nighttime. You know, you
yeah,
um you collect more water in a marine climate like ours than you do in Southern California. You know,
mm,
and that is,
yeah,
you think about all these things and how that's how
mm,
astrology really works. And
yeah,
how it dictates, in a natal chart, a person's personal vibrations. It shows what the higher self was making when it made you. To make Chris,
mm,
these conditions had to be met. To make Nico, these conditions had to be met. You know, and it's a very, but that was work. Obviously, that was done with a wisdom. Because I mean, maybe we aren't quite at the place where we can just custom create beings with our energy yet. But soon. But the the actual part of it, the alchemy that went into creating us, these fractals of these higher beings that are slowly getting bigger and bigger as the higher beings are like, okay, we're just going to step in. Um, was exceedingly dependent on alchemical resonances. And
mm,
and then those energies interact with the universe the way those energies are going to interact with the universe. And there's no good or bad about it. Some things will resonate, some things won't resonate. Why? Because that is what was built to resonate that way.
mm, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just a brief, I mean, and then, I mean, if you wanted to talk, I'm sure, and I had a question. I'm sorry, I do not have a name of this person. I was talking about it with somebody in a coffee shop, and I don't even think he's going to actually be watching this video. But Justin, if you are watching, thank you for at least asking a question. He actually did want to talk about, I guess you could say, I don't like to use the term supernatural or extraterrestrial, so let's just say extra physical beings, um, particularly in the terms of like just what we would consider, I guess you could say, demonic, angelic, extraterrestrial beings, and what is really going on with those beings,
Mm,
in terms of the alchemy. And funny enough, it works. We have, let's say we have our angelic being will be the one in red, and our well, where's my pen? I have a black one here, which will be our demonic being, because that'll be easy to associate, and then we'll have our blue being our extraterrestrial assumption. Now, I personally don't differentiate between any of these beings, what is and what is not extraterrestrial. I just call them extra physical or extra natural, because you know dictating origins like that, I think my personal opinion. I'm kind of like, well, they either all are or they all weren't, you know. So whatevs. Okay, so we've got our demonic, angelic, and extraterrestrial here, and put the arm back on my angel here. The way these vibrations work is you're watching these people or these entities going through their own evolution. All right, now these things all come from the same balance that we did in our evolution. It did. So let's put us in there as people. All right, with a purple one. Okay. And what happens is, as the chi of the soul evolves, it will obviously go through periods of high density, that higher light. it's not the optimal universal light. It's still going through some filters because an angelic being is it's still not quite, it's evolving towards source like we are. It's just further down the road. Um, that we have that kind of coming from our angel here. You can't even see this here. And then we also have, I guess you could say the bile or the viscid part of it with the demonic entity. We'll get to extraterrestrials in a sec, Justin. And what happens is that as the soul goes through this evolution, we're constantly cycling through with our bile, hopefully not too much, and our I guess you could say our angelic or higher light energies, kind of vibing through us at any given time. And what happens is that sometimes these souls and these entities, as they go and they expand, they become, part of a bigger thing. What you could consider, I guess you could say, a non-human or a non-human demonic entity. That is what we have going on when a soul is going into a neutron star kind of mode, a gravitational collapse. There is so much bile and so much viscid, that denser energy. It is coming in on itself. Now that might, in a part of a universal grand plan, maybe that's necessary. It's unpleasant to us. It's unpleasant, whatever. But it is kind of pulling all of that in, corroding, destroying, and all that kind of stuff. Whether or not it's doing it like a he cackle evil way, as we would, we would assume, and maybe fables, is up for debate. But what's happening is you have that gravitational collapse going on, and that soul, whatever it was, whether or not it was something that was ever human at one point, is irrelevant. Sometimes that can happen in the evolutionary process. Then it goes through that gravitational collapse. It returns to source, and it becomes one with source consciousness anyway. And then the same thing with the angelic side. We have this bright light expanding, 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 and becoming with source consciousness anyway. These extraterrestrial ideas and entities and things like that are just a higher vibrational version of us as we are, still going through that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until it gets there. Now, we, connected with our higher sources and our higher selves, do get to choose. How are we going to do it? Are we going to become, these bright higher, these higher 5D, 6D beings as we go through this transition? Are we going to have our gravitational collapse with all our fell bile energy and become more demonic in vibration, angelic in vibration, if we want to go the other extreme, which is, again, it's a different path. It's not necessarily easier or better. That's just the way it goes. Are we going to stay in balance, and are we going to go up? What purpose does our higher soul, our oversoul, really serve in the grander scheme of things? That is something that can be difficult to learn. Even if you're more awakened, your higher soul might be working through you, and then that soul's purpose vibrates through you. And sometimes you have higher vibrational entities that are working more in that what we would consider to be not so happy, not so positive. But it's a part of the universal process. But I don't think that that's necessarily something that stays where we're going, because a lot of this, fell versus holy, bile versus light stuff is also going through an expiration. There comes a point in the 5 and 6D where that is no longer necessary, and then you become part of this other thing. And then that is what I think people misconstrue as good and evil. How we use those processes and things like that. Or is it evil because it feels bad? Or is it good because it feels good? You can't tell with those things. You really can't. And that's why we need to get rid of that duality perspective. Get the fuck out of it. Because you don't really know. You don't really know. But as we were talking about before, our higher selves is invested in winning the game. And if you want to succeed and connect to other people in your soul family, you know, you're going to find people that resonate with you, and you will serve your purpose, and you will serve it with due diligence and that higher vibrational love light. And odds are you won't end up going through that gravitational collapse. But during an evolution, some souls goes to choose to go through some pretty unpleasant, dark experiences. They do, and that's still serving a purpose. And that's why I don't think that necessarily is something that should be considered, you know, um, evil or unnecessary, you know, or
I see it as I see it as like the darkness is lit to grow the light almost. It's that friction. There needs to be some friction there temporarily to create more light, if you will. I really do see it's like we were saying earlier about the higher dimensions of consciousness almost reaching down into the lower, creating the lower, expanding like the universe expanding, everything moving,
hmm
creating, and then and then the higher consciousness eventually getting down into that to bring it back into light itself,
exactly.
and as it goes through that process, it then creates more lower dimensions that eventually it will go back down and create that into light as well, because it's the universe or consciousness, if we will, expanding, constantly growing. And you could even say, I've contemplated this often, is when we think of like virtual reality, computer, like computer games that are created, I'm sure one day there will be the point where somebody will put a headset on and there will be a whole reality in there. Now then will then consciousness, it's creating almost like another dimension. Virtual reality is almost like another dimension, a lower dimension in
Yeah,
itself. And so, how far does it go? Because then, would you eventually could you then create another simulation with inside that simulation, and inside that simulation,
yeah, no, absolutely.
and obviously a hologram within a hologram, and it's going down and down and down, and obviously it goes up and up and
hmm
up. The microcosm of the macrocosm, as we say. So yeah, it's I see it as all necessary. It's all necessary until it's not necessary anymore.
Exactly. And we're getting to a point, I think, where the I guess you could extreme associations or the value associations placed on what these vibrations are um, have no meaning. It's not necessary to place the value on it. Um, it's now time to awaken, become aware, and become ready to take responsibility in the sense where you take responsibility for resonating what you resonate and attracting what you attract and creating what you create, because we are not leaving this virtual reality. We are not leaving this game, you know, till we die. But even then, I have a belief that, sometimes people still play the game when they pass on. They might leave their body, but they're still playing. It just can be fun and reassuring. And the uh, the effort that goes on there, um, you might as well just get good at it, and you might as well just evolve with it. But I think you're right. It, it's basically a matter of just fixing it, and getting yourself into a right place. So,
That's it. We're here to, the way I see it is like, we're here to transform the game into something so much higher, such a higher dimensional, frequency. Like, and that's what we said. It's almost coming in to transform it, to bring it back into that higher dimensional state, to raise that frequency of it. It's, I kind of, when I took
hmm
ayahuasca, that was a sense that I got, that you get, that almost like the dimensions are all layered on top of each other, and the awareness, the pure source awareness that we are, kind of looks or focuses through the lens of each
right,
dimension, and really, like I said, what we're here to do is to bring that. those dimensions into as a higher level of consciousness as
No, I
possible.
agree. It's actually really cool what you just said. I remember listening to that. This is a couple of months ago, and I was actually got this really interesting visual of it. And I was going to send you a picture because they actually like had this scientific research thing, and they were talking about the Big Bang, and they were looking at like how it kind of exploded out of this one point of singularity. And let's just say this is an extremely blown up model, but if this were, I mean, I kind of look at it when they were discussing it, I was thinking of like, the layers of the dimensions, like here's the bang and here's the U, and then is the like do 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 all the way to that,
Yeah,
and it's right behind you.
yeah,
Had that too. Didn't take anything, but well, I,
yeah,
I did, but it wasn't that. Uh,
yeah. And obviously we have to draw it to be able to describe it in that way where it looks like that it's in front of you, but really they're all almost layered on top of
yep,
each other.
crammed in
Yeah.
and going in all directions. Absolutely. No, that's
Mm.
pretty cool. I didn't know anyone else looked at it that way.
It
That's
is
pretty
cool.
awesome. Check us out. We are the same. So, okay, so we about to wrap it up. I just got a message from Chris saying that we had to shoot. Okay. I wasn't sure.
it's a it's a term that they use in Britain, meaning they've got to dash
Oh, okay.
or
All right.
go.
All right. It's like what? It's okay.
I've not actually got a gun at home that I'm going to actually
Oh,
shoot.
okay. Well, I was like, God, it's awfully late. Okay, I don't judge. It's like whatever. Do what you want to do. You might live out in the countryside. I know plenty of people up north here who do the same thing. So, my friend. So I was just kind of like, well, it seems awfully late. No, of course, absolutely. So yeah, we can wrap it up because I think this was a good chat. Well, was it really a chat? It was just me
Mm.
going on and on. I mean, you talked. I told you to stop me. Where was the banging that I asked you to do? You didn't stop me.
No, it was it was very in depth and very insightful information.
Thank you.
So and it was a good insight into the alchemy, which I think which is something that can benefit everybody, as we've said. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's really cool.
No, we'll be looking more into that. All right, Chris. Well, I will go let you go shoot, and I will learn. I will learn. I am actually very good. For some reason, this is a part. I don't know what happens. Is I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm omnilingual by any stretch of the imagination, but usually I have an ability to just kind of pick up on slang and know what people are talking about. I'm
Mm.
mad at myself for not being able to do that this time. Maybe I should.
I actually thought it were an American term.
No, no. We usually say like I've got a book, or I've got a ditch, or I've got to bounce. But yeah,
Oh.
those are. We maybe you and I should we could do a translation video at some point in time. We don't because yeah, translating an American Canadian slang to the UK and back and forth because and even some down south because apparently where I live we have our own set of slang. I didn't know was actually more Canadian in origin. And a lot of Americans don't know what I'm talking about either. So it's almost like comparing Yorkshire to the south of England. If you compare the Seattle area to say like Southern California, or it's really funny. So it's kind of interesting. Anyway, Chris, I'm gonna let you go shoot, and I'm going to work on this, and we will figure out what we're gonna talk about next time, and I will announce it, but I don't know. All right, so you take care.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
Nico.
All right, I'm gonna turn off the
Yeah.
recording, and that'll that'll do that.